The smoke on the edge of the forscalen walked alone through the thick alien forest, his boots crunching softly on the dead leaves below. The jungle was quiet, too quiet. Only the strange sounds of distant bird-like creatures echoed now, and then he had come here to deliver supplies to an outpost that no longer answered the radio. Then he saw a thin line of smoke rising in the sky, curling into the pale blue atmosphere. He narrowed his eyes. Smoke meant trouble. Nothing in this part of the forest should be burning. The nearest colony was miles away. He reached for his small rifle, checked it, and moved toward the smoke without saying a word. As he walked deeper, the trees grew darker and twisted. Something felt wrong. The smell of burning wood and something else, something like burnt metal and flesh, grew stronger. Finally, Callan pushed through the last of the trees and froze. In the small clearing stood a half-destroyed alien hut, its roof broken, the wooden walls blackened by fire. There was no movement. Ash floated in the air like gray snow. The silence around the place was heavy, like death itself was watching. Callan stepped carefully into the clearing, his rifle raised, eyes scanning every corner. Then he heard it, a weak cry. It wasn't a normal cry. It was small, like a whimper, full of fear. A child. He moved fast, stepping over broken parts of the hut. The inside was smoky and dark, but in the far corner, he saw her. An alien woman, badly injured. Her arms were wrapped tightly around a tiny child, whose thin body shook with quiet sobs. The woman's skin was pale and cracked, strange glowing veins showing near her shoulders. Her clothes were torn and bloodied. One leg was clearly broken, and a burn mark ran across her side. She looked up when she heard him. Her purple eyes, half closed, widened. She gasped and moved to cover the child. Her body shook as she tried to shield the small boy. Callan didn't move. He spoke softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The woman didn't believe him. Her eyes were full of fear and pain. She coughed hard, her breath rattling. The child cried louder now, hiding behind her torn cloak. "I have water," Callan said, slowly kneeling, and pulling out a small flask. The woman looked at the flask, then at him. Her body sagged against the wall. She was too weak to fight, too weak to run. Carefully, Callan moved closer and placed the flask near her hand. She didn't grab it. Instead, the child, small, with wide silver eyes, crawled out and took it. He tried to drink but spilled half of it. Callan didn't stop him. The woman finally spoke. Her voice was soft and broken. "Please, don't hurt my son." "I won't," Callan said. "I promise." She looked into his eyes for a long second. Then, her body relaxed slightly. She closed her eyes and leaned back, one hand still holding the child close. "What happened here?" Callan asked gently. She shook her head slowly. "They came. They were looking for us. I tried to run, but they found me." "Who were they?" he asked. She didn't answer, just a whisper. "Hunters." Callan looked around the ruined hut. Again, plaster burns on the walls, blood trails, scattered belongings. This wasn't a random attack, this was a targeted hit. He stood up and looked at the sky. If the attackers were still nearby, they might return. "You can't stay here," he said. The woman opened her eyes. "We have nowhere else." "You do now," Callan said. He knew what he was doing was dangerous. He knew helping her could make him a target too, but he couldn't walk away. Not after seeing that child's eyes. Not after hearing her beg. "My shelter is not far," he said. "It's hidden secure. I'll take you there." The woman didn't move. "I can carry you," Callan offered. She stared at him, unsure. Her pride, her fear, her pain, they all showed in her face. But the child looked up at her, scared and clinging to her side. Finally, she gave a slow nod. Ian moved forward, gently lifting her in his arms. She was light, too light. The child followed, walking close behind with a small hand clutching Callan's belt. As he stepped back into the forest, carrying the alien widow and her son. Callan didn't look back at the burning hut. He only tightened his grip. Whatever danger was coming, he had made a choice. He would protect them, no matter what. The forest seemed colder now. The sunlight barely reached the ground through the thick canopy. Callan walked fast, careful not to trip while carrying the alien woman in his arms. The child Leorin followed closely, holding onto Callan's belt with both hands. Every step the boy took was silent, like he had learned long ago not to make noise. Saya, the injured woman, kept her eyes half open, watching the trees, whispering something under her breath in her alien language. Her body was burning with fever, and every breath she took sounded painful. Callan didn't ask questions. Not yet. His mind stayed sharp, watching for movement, listening for sounds. He knew this place well, every tree, every hidden path, but something felt off. They were being watched. He had walked this path many times before, but now the silence was heavy. The birds weren't calling. Even the wind seemed afraid. "We're almost there," he whispered, more for himself than for them. Ahead was his hidden shelter, built inside a cave behind a thick wall of rock and vines. No one knew about it, not even the people he worked with. It was his secret, a place he used when things went bad. He reached the narrow entrance, kicked aside the brush, and stepped inside. The cave opened into a warm, dry space lit by solar lamps. Old supplies, gear, and tools lined the walls. A rolled-up bed lay in one corner. Callan placed Saya gently onto the soft bedding. She winced but didn't cry out. She was strong, even while half-broken. Leorin sat beside her and held her hand. His wide silver eyes never left Callan. "Stay close," Callan said. He turned and sealed the entrance with the hidden rock, slab and camouflage net. Only when everything was secure did he finally sit down. He poured water into a metal cup and offered it to Saya. She drank slowly, her hands shaking. "You're safe now," Callan said. "No one will find you here." She didn't speak for a while, just looked at her son, then at Callan. "You don't know what you've done," she finally said. "I helped," he replied. "No, you invited danger into your life," she said quietly. "They will come. They always come." Callan's jaw tightened. "Who are they?" She closed her eyes. "Bounty hunters. I thought I escaped them. I ran for years. But they found me again. Why are they hunting you?" he asked. Saya hesitated. "Because of who I was, who my mate was. He died a long time ago. But they still hunt me, and now my child." Callan looked at the boy, who had curled up next to his mother. The child looked innocent, small, like he'd never harmed anyone. Why would anyone want to harm a child? "They fear what he might become," Saya whispered. "They think he carries something inside him. Something from his father, like a power?" Callan asked. She didn't answer. Callan stood up and checked his gear, his old rifle, a motion sensor, a few explosives. It wasn't much, but it would buy them time. That night, as Saya and Leorin slept, Callan stayed awake. He sat near the entrance, eyes on the shadows outside. His gut twisted. Something wasn't right. Around midnight, the motion sensor blinked. He froze. A soft clicking noise echoed through the trees outside. Then silence. Callan grabbed his rifle, flipped off the safety, and crept to the entrance. He listened, holding his breath. A branch cracked. Then another click. He peered through the small crack in the wall. Something moved. Not a man. Not an animal. Something tall, thin, and covered in dark armor. It sniffed the air like a beast and dragged a strange weapon behind it, scraping the rocks. Its glowing red eyes scanned the ground, searching. It passed the entrance, but stopped just inches from the wall. Callan didn't move. The creature raised its nose again, sniffing. It let out a low growl. Then it moved on. Callan waited until the blinking sensors stopped. Until the forest fell quiet again. He backed away from the door, heart pounding. They'd found the hut. They were tracking her. And they were close. He turned toward the sleeping pair. The child's small hand still rested on his mother's burned arm. Callan tightened his grip on the rifle. This wasn't just about survival now. This was war. And he was already on the front line. In the early light of morning, the cave was quiet. Only the faint hum of Callan's solar lamp filled the space. Saya lay asleep, her body wrapped in an emergency blanket. Her face was pale, but calmer now. Her son, Leorin, rested with his head against her side, one hand still clinging to her tunic. Callan moved silently through the shelter, checking the traps outside the hidden entrance. Nothing had been triggered since the strange hunter passed. But that didn't mean they were safe. He returned to the cave, sat down, and finally allowed himself to look at the two strangers he had decided to protect. Leorin looked like a mix of species, his skin light gray, almost soft like clay, but his hair was dark like his mother's. His eyes glowed faintly silver, like tiny moons. Saya's face was shaped like a human's, but her ears were long and curved, with markings near her temples that looked almost carved. She stirred. Callan leaned forward. "You awake?" Her eyes opened slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "I brought food." He handed her a small ration bar. "It's not much, but it's safe." She took it with trembling hands and broke a small piece for Leorin, who sat up and started chewing quietly. "I need to ask you something," Callan said. "Last night something came to the shelter. It was hunting. And I think it smelled you." Saya froze. "It didn't find us," he continued. "But it was close." "They have the blood scent," she said, her voice bitter. "They follow it. That's how they track." "Then I need to know why." Callan's voice was firm now. "Who are you really? And what are they looking for?" Saya looked down at her hands. For a long time she didn't speak. Then she pulled the blanket away from her back. There, just below her shoulder blades, was a glowing marca symbol burned into her skin, glowing faintly blue like a living brand. It looked like ancient alien writing, but alive, pulsing gently as if it sensed something. Callan frowned. "What is that?" "It's not just a mark," she said. "It's a code, a genetic key. My mate was part of the resistance. He carried information inside him, data they couldn't decode. Before he died, he transferred it into me, through biotech." Callan stared. "You're saying that thing in your skin is data?" "Yes," she nodded. "And not just me. My son has it too, half of it, hidden in his DNA." Callan looked at the boy. Leorin watched him quietly, his eyes blinking slowly. "They're not just hunting you," Callan said. "They're hunting your child. They think if they erase us, the message dies," she said softly. "They fear what we carry. It's truth. It could end their power." Callan stood up and started pacing. "So they'll keep coming until they're sure you're both dead." Saya nodded. "You should leave us. Take your supplies and go. You don't have to die with us." "But..." Callan didn't answer. His hand ran over his stubbled jaw, eyes dark and thoughtful. He remembered the child's small hand clutching his belt in the woods. The way Saya had tried to shield her son with her broken body. The quiet fear in their eyes. He sat back down. "I'm not leaving." She looked up. "Why?" "Because I've seen monsters in my life," Callan said. "I've fought wars for people who never cared if I lived or died. But you," he looked at both of them, "you didn't ask for any of this. You just want to survive. And that boy deserves to live." Saya stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes shimmered. She nodded once, slowly. "I'll protect him." Callan said, "As long as I'm breathing." Silence fell again, but it was different now. Not fear, something heavier. Like a promise made without words. Then Callan stood and went to the supply box. He pulled out a metal case and opened it. Inside were motion scanners, sensor mines, and a few outdated blasters. "I need to fortify this place," he said. "We're not running, not yet. We fight." Leorin looked up, his voice soft and uncertain. "Will they come tonight?" Kellen knelt beside him. "Maybe," he said. "But if they do, they'll find out what humans are made of." The boy smiled for the first time, a small, shy smile. Callan ruffled his hair. "That's better." As the sun rose outside, hidden behind jungle trees and clouds, Callan began working. Setting traps, lining walls, creating escape tunnels. Above all, preparing for the war that was already walking toward them. Asterisk night fell like a black curtain. No stars showed in the sky. Even the wind had stopped moving the trees. Inside the cave, Callan sat in silence. His rifle rested across his lap. The motion sensors were active, traps buried, perimeter secured, but still, his fingers twitched. He didn't trust the quiet. Saya sat beside her child, wrapping him in a thick blanket. She looked stronger than before, but only barely. The glow on her back was dim now. Leorin clutched a worn cloth doll Callan had given him earlier, a small comfort in a world that had none. Callan checked the time again. Midnight. Then it happened. A flash of red light. The sensor by the outer trees blinked. Then dash boom. A trap exploded. Leorin screamed. Saya covered him, shielding his head. Callan was already on his feet, moving to the entrance. He peered through the hidden crack in the wall. Smoke rolled through the trees. 2 bodies lay still, bounty hunters. One had stepped on a buried mine, but others followed. 5 shadows moved between the trees, wearing dark armor with glowing red visors. They were fast, silent, holding strange weapons. One of them stopped, scanning the ground. Another sniffed the air like a beast. "They're here," Callan said through clenched teeth. He turned to Saya. "Stay in the back with the boy. If I fall, take the tunnel and run." She opened her mouth to protest, but the look in his eyes stopped her. She nodded once, tight and fearful. Callan pulled out a second rifle and took his position behind a stack of old crates near the entrance. He waited. Crack! The outer rocks shifted. One of them was trying to find the door. Callan's finger hovered over the trigger. Suddenly, the wall exploded inward. Smoke and dust filled the air. Callan rolled to the side as a bounty hunter burst through, roaring like a beast. Its armor shimmered with energy. It raised a plasma blade, but Callan fired first. 1, 2, 3 shots straight into its chest. The creature stumbled, then dropped. Another followed, ducking low. Callan turned just in time to block the incoming strike with the butt of his rifle. Pain shot through his arm, but he twisted, grabbed the hunter's weapon, and shoved it backward. The trap on the floor snapped. A sharp stake shot upward, impaling the alien through the leg. It howled. Callan didn't wait. He slammed the rifle into the thing's helmet, then fired again. Blood sprayed the wall. He turned just in time to see a third figure standing in the smoke, weapon pointed. Callan raised his gun, too late. Blast! A searing bolt of energy struck his shoulder. He cried out and fell back, weapon clattering to the floor. The bounty hunter stepped forward, but suddenly, Saya screamed. The air trembled. The glow on her back flared bright blue. From behind the crates, she stood with her eyes glowing and one hand stretched toward the attacker. A pulse of energy shot from her palm, slamming into the bounty hunter's chest and throwing it backward into the wall. It didn't move again. Saya fell to her knees, gasping, clutching her side. Callan crawled to her, bleeding but alive. "That was," he breathed, staring at her. "I told you I had something inside," she whispered, weak but still alert. "But it burns every time I use it." From outside the cave, another roar echoed. Then silence. Callan looked up. Footsteps approached. Heavy, slow. A tall figure stepped through the smoke, wearing black armor with golden trim. Its face was hidden by a sharp metal mask. In its hand, it held a long staff that buzzed with energy. It stopped in front of Callan, staring down at him. "You're not one of us," the deep voice said. "Why risk your life for them?" Callan sat up slowly, holding his bleeding shoulder. He looked at Saya, then at Leorin, who cried silently behind the crates. "Because I'm human," Callan said. "And humans don't walk away from children." The masked figure paused, then raised its staff. Callan didn't flinch. Suddenly, a distant alarm sounded. The motion sensors farther in the forest lit up. A second group was arriving. The figure looked toward the sound, growled, then stepped back. "This isn't over," it said. "We'll return." Then it disappeared into the smoke. Callan collapsed back, breathing hard, blood running down his side. Saya crawled beside him. "You're hurt." "I've been worse," he said, trying to smile. Leorin ran over, burying his face in Callan's chest. Callan wrapped an arm around him. "They'll come back," Saya said. "I know," Callan replied. "Next time I'll be ready." The cave smelled of smoke, blood, and dust. Callan lay back against the wall, shirt ripped open, his shoulder wrapped tightly in cloth. His face was pale, but his eyes stayed sharp, watching the shadows even while in pain. Saya sat beside him, holding a bowl of warm water and a cloth. She gently wiped the dried blood from his skin, her hands trembling. Leorin sat nearby, hugging his knees, too quiet for a child who had just survived death. "You should be resting," Saya whispered. "I will when they're all dead," Callan answered with a dry voice. Outside, the traps had been reset, the fallen bodies buried deep in the forest. But they all knew the quiet wouldn't last. The masked one had promised to return, and this time, he wouldn't come alone. Saya stared into the flickering light. The glow on her back had faded again, but its memory still haunted her. She had used her power, and it had nearly burned her from inside. What was that energy? Callan asked finally. Saya looked away. "You saved us," he added. "But that wasn't normal, not even for an alien." She placed the bowl down and pulled back her long sleeves. Strange markings ran up her arms, thin as veins but glowing faintly in the darkness. They weren't tattoos. They were living circuits. "My husband didn't just leave me information," she said quietly. "He left me a weapon." Callan frowned. "That energy, you can control it?" Saya shook her head. "Not fully, it's unstable. It reacts to fear, anger, love. I can't always choose when it comes." Callan leaned forward, ignoring the pain. "Can you teach me?" She looked at him, startled. "It would destroy you. Your body isn't built for it." "Then show me how to protect you," he said. "Because next time, they'll bring more. They'll bring machines, hunters with scanners, maybe even air drones, and all I've got are old guns and sharp sticks." Saya stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "There's something I haven't told you yet." She stood and walked to her bag, the only thing she had carried from the ruined hut. From deep inside, she pulled out a small cube, made of silver metal and wrapped in wires. She brought it to Callan and placed it in his hands. "What is it?" he asked. "It's called a memory shard," she said. "My husband made it. It holds the original code, the full message. It's locked inside me now, but this shard can awaken it." Callan stared at the object. It vibrated slightly, like it was alive. "If I use this," she continued, "I can become more than I am, stronger, faster. I can burn through armies. But," she looked down. "But? It comes at a price," she said. "It drains life. The more I use it, the more it feeds on me. If I push too far, I won't survive." Callan's jaw tightened. "And your son? He doesn't know." "I never wanted him to see me like that." A long silence stretched between them. Then Callan handed the shard back. "Only use it if there's no other way." Saya looked surprised. "You don't want me to fight?" "I want you to live," Callan said, "and your son to have his mother." Her eyes softened. She sat beside him again. "Why do you care so much? You don't even know us." Callan didn't answer right away. He reached into his own pack and pulled out an old folded photo. He showed it to her, a young human woman with dark hair holding a baby. "My wife and my son," he said. "What happened?" "Raiders, long ago. I was away. I came back too late." Saya's face fell. She touched the edge of the photo gently. "I couldn't save them," Callan said. "But I can save you." A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, but not before he saw. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through the cave. The motion. Sensor blinked again, but this time, there was more than one signal. Callan stood up, grabbed his rifle, and moved to the entrance. Saya joined him, her back glowing faintly even without the shard. They looked out through the crack in the wall. Dozens of red lights moved in the distance, marching fast. "They've brought an army," Callan whispered. Saya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Then it begins." The forest glowed red. Dozens of small lights blinked in the darkness, silent, steady, and cold. Machines moved between the trees, tall as men but shaped like insects, their legs clicking as they climbed. Over roots and rocks. Between them marched shadowed bounty hunters, faces hidden, weapons glowing with deadly heat. Inside the cave, Callan watched from the entrance slit, his eyes hard. "They're surrounding us," he said. Saya stood beside him. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hand rested on Leoran's head, keeping the child close. Callan turned. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach the traps. After that, they'll come through the walls." "I'll fight," Saya said. "You'll protect your son," Callan said. "I'm not leaving you alone." He stared at her for a moment. "You're not. I have one last plan, but I won't lie, this is it." He stepped back and pulled a rolled-up map from his bag. It showed the layout of the cave and forest. He pointed to a hidden tunnel, half covered by stones. "This leads down through the rocks. It comes out on the other side of the valley, about 2 miles from here. You'll need to crawl, but it's safe. Once you're through, run west. There's a canyon with caves. I've used them before." Saya looked at the map, then at Callan. "What about you?" "I'll stay here," he said. "Set off the traps, slow them down. Buy you time. You won't survive." He looked at Leoran. "He will." Saya opened her mouth to argue, but Callan stepped close and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I already made peace with death a long time ago," he said. "This is the first time I've had a reason to fight for something more than myself." Saya's hands shook. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She knelt down and looked into Leoran's eyes. "We're going to crawl through the dark, all right? But I'll be right behind you. Don't be afraid." The boy nodded silently. He hugged Callan, one small arms around his waist. Then Saya lifted the tunnel cover, and they disappeared into the narrow space. Callan stood alone now. He strapped on his armor, fastened every clip, tightened every belt. He checked the rifle, loaded the last of his energy cells. Around the cave he had placed mines, sharp traps, and even fuel cans rigged to explode. He didn't plan to win. He planned to make them bleed. The first wave hit hard. An explosion rocked the entrance, then another. A machine burst through, legs clicking, red eyes glowing. Blam. Callan fired, straight into its core. It exploded in sparks, falling like a broken spider. 2 more followed. He triggered the floor trap. A mine blew, shaking the cave. One bounty hunter screamed, leg torn off, crawling with metal scraping. Callan kicked over a barrel of fire oil, lit it with a shot. Flames swept across the wall, a wall of fire. But still, they kept coming. He was pushed back, step by step. A tall figure stepped through the smoke, the masked leader. "You again," it said coldly. "I told you," Callan growled. "You're not taking the boy." "You're one man," the hunter replied. "You can't stop a storm." Callan raised his weapon. "I am the storm." The two charged. The battle was brutal, metal against bone. Blade against skin. Callan took hits. Blood poured from his side. His arm burned. His vision blurred. But he didn't stop. The fire grew hotter. Smoke filled the air. Then a sound. A soft, pulsing hum. Blue light filled the cave. The masked hunter stopped and turned. Behind him stood Saya. Her body glowed, lines of power racing through her skin. The shard pulsed in her chest like a second heart. Her eyes were burning blue stars. "You told me not to use it," she said, her voice echoing. Callan, half-conscious, smiled. "I'm glad you didn't listen." Saya raised her hand and the cave exploded with light. A wave of energy pushed the attackers back. Machines fried. Blasters shattered. The masked leader screamed as his armor cracked under the force. But Saya screamed too, falling to her knees, the power draining her fast. Callan crawled toward her, grabbed her arm. "No, don't burn out. I can't stop it," she cried. Then a small hand touched hers. Liorn. He had crawled back through the tunnel. The boy's hand glowed too. The power shifted, balanced, softened. Together, mother and son stood as the last energy wave cleared the cave. Only silence remained. The attackers were gone. Smoke drifted through the air. The stone walls glowed with heat. Callen sat back, bleeding, smiling. You did it." Saya fell beside him, exhausted. "You saved us first," she whispered. He reached for her hand and held it tight. Outside, the red lights were gone. The night was finally quiet. Morning light filtered through the thick trees, soft and golden. Smoke still hung in the air, but the fire had died. The cave no longer echoed with the sounds of war. It was quiet now, still. Callan lay on the ground, his back against a wall blackened by heat. His shirt was torn, his body covered in blood and dirt. Every breath hurt, but he was alive. Barely. Saya knelt beside him, weak and pale. Her hand trembled as she pressed a cloth to his wounds. The blue glow on her skin had faded. The shard inside her chest had dimmed. She was exhausted. The power had drained her soul, but she had survived. Liorn sat close, holding Callan's other hand. The boy didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just watched the man who had stood between him and death. "You should have run," Callan whispered, voice rough like broken stone. "I couldn't," Saya said softly. "Not after everything you did. You used the shard. You could have died." "I'd rather die protecting my son," she answered. Callan managed a faint smile. "Then we're the same." Saya looked at him for a long time. Then she leaned closer, pressing her forehead to his. "You gave us hope again," she whispered. "You showed us what a real protector is," Callan grunted. "I was just buying time." "No," she said. "You gave us a future." He looked past her, toward the cave entrance. Sunlight was breaking through the cracks. The forest was waking up. Birds chirped. Life returned. But he didn't feel peace. "They'll come again," he said. "This wasn't the end." Saya nodded. "They won't stop. Not until the code is erased." Callan looked at Liorn. The boy met his eyes. "Then we'll keep running," Callan said. "We'll move. Stay hidden. We'll stay one step ahead." "You say we now," Saya whispered. "I'm not leaving him," Callan replied. "Not now, not ever." Saya's voice broke. "He's not your blood." Callan squeezed the boy's hand. "Doesn't matter. He's mine now." Liorn leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "Papa." Callan's chest tightened. His eyes burned. He blinked hard, fighting the emotion, but it filled him like a flood. He had lost everything once. A wife, a child, a life worth living. And now, somehow, he had found something again. A new family. Saya helped him sit up, slowly, carefully. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll track the energy burst. I know a place. Callan said. Old human base, buried in the northern cliffs. No one's touched it in years. Is it safe? No, he smiled. But nothing ever is. They packed what little. They had food, tools, the shard. Callan's old rifle, bent but still useful. Saya's bag. Leoran's doll. Callan limped, leaning on a walking stick. Saya moved slowly, her strength not fully returned. Leoran walked between them, holding both their hands as they reached the edge of the trees. Callan looked back one last time. The cave stood in silence, burned and broken. But it had been a shield, a battleground, a home. Now it would be left behind. We start over, he said. Saya nodded. Together. They walked through the forest, 3 shadows under the rising sun as they moved. Saya turned to Callan. When this is all over, what will you do? Callan looked down at Leoran, who stared ahead with quiet bravery. I'll build him a real home, he said. A place with laughter, peace, a place no hunter can ever reach. And if they catch us before that? Callan smiled, his eyes steady. Then I'll die standing between them and my family. Saya didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her hand found his again. They walked in silence, stronger than before, not as strangers, not as survivors, but as a family built by fire fear, and the fierce will of a human who refused to let them die alone. And somewhere deep in the trees, the stars above whispered the beginning of a legend. The man who defied death for a widow and her child, and became something more than human. The END.